I recall being in the operating room and being aware of the theater. For whatever reason, I wasn't particularly interested in me. Of all the experiences that I've had, that just continuously reiterates there's more than we know, and our consciousness exists in our bodies and out of our bodies.
Kia ora, hello, and welcome back. We are the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. We talk all things life, death, experiences in between, spiritual experiences, deathbed experiences, the works. Today, I'm excited to have another conversation. Today, I'm talking with Summer McStravick, who has been on quite a journey. From working with the likes of Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, and living what she thought was an amazing dream life, job, the works, everything changed when she found herself on the operating table and really questioning everything about life. She accidentally created a technique which is called Flowdreaming, which got her through what she was in. She found herself helping others, writing books, doing public speaking, and catching a glimpse of her deeper purpose. So today I'm chatting with Summer. She's here to share how catching this glimpse of death really challenged her to live. Summer, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Thank you, Christy. I'm happy to be here with you today.
So where do we start with your story? It sounds like quite a bit. Where does this sort of all start, and how did you get to being on the operating table to where you are today?
Well, it actually starts a lot longer ago than that. I come from a multi-generational family of intuitives and mediums and people who just have always been out there in the woo-woo world. Myself,
Oh, I love
I'm the
it.
oldest daughter of the oldest daughter of the oldest daughter of the oldest daughter. All my grandmothers going back to, gosh, the Dust Bowl of the United States back in the 1900s, a bunch of farmers who also practiced astrology and mediumship and so forth. So I've always had that as a background. And the result was growing up, of course, wanting to be anything but what your family is. If you've ever had a teenager, you know that experience.
Uh-huh.
So I took a really different journey. I decided to go into the world of publishing and writing and not be crazy like them. You know how life is. It always just turns you right back around to, who you are. So
Yeah.
over the years, I've actually had multiple experiences that I can't I can't explain them at all. I mean, they just are mysterious little blips in my life. And what I now look at as an NDE that I had during surgery, maybe was the capstone to that. I don't know, because in my mediumship I've done a lot of strange things too. So it's hard for me to pick where the first one is, but we'll start with that one, which actually happened before my career. It happened when I was a teenager, and part of what maybe just the universe knocking me in my head and telling me, what are you doing? So I guess I'm trying to think what year it was. Oh God, I shouldn't tell everybody how old I am, but it was a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I was living with my mom. She was divorced, single parent. And I was probably 18 or 19. Started to feel very ill, really sick, and ended up, in the bathroom all night, throwing up until nothing was coming out but orange bile. And because I'd grown up in an alternative household, we never went to the doctor. I mean, that was just I think I'd been to the doctor twice in my life before that. I finally woke her up in the morning, dawn, and I said, there's something really wrong. This is not just a flu. And she took a look at me and we went to the ER. And because I guess she had driven me in, things are different here in the States. If you don't come in by ambulance, they tend to deprioritize you. So I
Mm.
remember at a point just laying down on the floor of the emergency room on the cold white tile. And I said, I'm just going to go to sleep now, okay? Because I just can't do anymore. I think they took me seriously then because I woke up a little bit later and I was in a room and they admitted me. And for 5 days, they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it was an obvious case in hindsight, but they could not figure out what was wrong. They diagnosed me initially with a kidney infection, which somehow became sepsis. eventually, I think I was a day 6 or 7. An older, experienced doctor came in and said, your appendix burst about a week ago. So they did an operation on me, and that's where I found myself, scared to death. I remember just going under and, tears going down my face, thinking, I don't know. And I knew it was serious because this was the point when, not only was my boyfriend there, but my boyfriend's parents were there and the extended family was there, and all these people were all visiting me. And I said, this is not, it's not good.
Yeah.
And I remember certain points where they were giving me such hard antibiotics that I had like foam coming out of my mouth. And there were periods where lying in my hospital bed, I kept saying, I'm rolling out of my bed. And there was a wall with a window right next to me. And I'd find myself rolling through this wall. And I'd say, you've really got to get back in there. And I'd try and roll myself back in. And I thought, okay, I know what this is. It's a out of body experience. That's it. But when I got into the operating room, maybe because I was so afraid, but I found myself with this awareness, and people who've had out of body experiences, or when, particularly like when you're sleeping and so forth, you understand your vision changes. You can see everything is there and apparent, but it's not visual. It's a different way of understanding what you're seeing. And it's like everything is lit from within. There's no sunlight or anything. You can see everything, but it's not a visual sense. It's a very odd, maybe it's echolocation or something. I have no idea. But I recall being in the operating room and being aware of the theater. For whatever reason, I wasn't particularly interested in me, but I was listening and trying to understand what was going on. I woke up from anesthesia, I don't know, a couple hours later. And the first thing I asked the nurses there was, what's peritonitis? What is, gangrene? What's sepsis? I knew what gangrene was. Didn't know what the other words were. And they looked at me like, how do you know this? And I said, I heard it. They said so. What is that? What was it? Well, it turns out when you have a ruptured appendix, sepsis, of course, is when you start to go into organ failure. Gangrene is when your limbs rot and fall off. And peritonitis is just this mass inflammation of all of your, intestines. So they had to scrape the stuff from everywhere outside of me and leave me with an open wound for a couple of weeks to drain, looking right down into my intestines. A horrible case of malpractice, I got to say, but at the time we didn't realize that. We just thought, oh, I'm glad they finally caught it. That's when I realized that I thought I had just been out of body, but a couple years ago, I went to, of all things, a UFO conference. I did it for a lark, just for fun. It was out here in the desert in California. I'm like, yeah, let's go learn about all the UFOs. This is going to be fun. I dragged my husband along. And I thought it was all just going to be like, little green men and, the Arcturians and everything. I'm like, that's cool. It'll be fun. And this one doctor gets up and he starts talking about NDEs. And he puts this checklist up on the hotel room, screen. And I went, check, 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 check. And I thought, oh, maybe this went a little further than I ever realized. So I'm on the border because I know that I was no longer present in my body. I was definitely in a different viewpoint, a different place. I didn't have the sensation of wanting to be sucked away or anyone coming to me or, lights and tunnels. But I do recall having a sensation of, we don't know where this is going. Just this crazy ambivalence. And, conversation I had with the doctor afterwards, he said to me, I was never afraid about losing you, but this one over here. And he pointed to there was a girl in the other bed. I guess they try to keep us teens together. I don't know. She said, I worry about this one because you have always known you're going to make it. You've always had, it was like he was trying to tell me something in a non-doctorish thing, which is you had a fight or there's something where I know it's going to be okay, even though her case is far less worse than yours. So that's it. And the transformation it's made in me is I don't know, I guess it's hard to describe. It's like I said, it's capstone, one more thing of all the experiences that I've had that just continuously reiterates there's more than we know. And our consciousness exists in our bodies and out of our bodies.
Mm,
And really, it's just about where it's located. And it's that funny feeling of not having it located in your body whatsoever anymore that I think is the big rupture, the strangest feeling of all.
mm.
Um, so I guess that's the big one. But I have others if you want me to go into them, unless you have questions.
Yeah, well, the question that I'm thinking is, was this the point where you opened up to, you said it been in your family, you'd been the eldest daughter of the eldest daughter of the eldest daughter.
Yeah.
Was this
Yeah.
experience the point when you go, oh, okay, so I probably need to actually go along with this? And that's when you opened up to being in spiritual work?
Well, I wish I could say yes, but I
I
was
love
pretty
it.
obstinate. I'm a very stubborn Virgo, and it's going to take
I
me a
can feel you're a
while.
fighter.
So no. So let's just say I, of course, had an exceptional interest because I had ability, because weird things were always happening to me. But I always said, oh, and brush it off. Just brush it off. It's like, when you have so many strange things constantly happen, you can kind of get this cavalier attitude.
Mm.
Which I know is funny because other people are like, oh my God, I wish one strange thing would happen to me
Yeah.
ever for once. No, there were times, I'll tell you about two more instances when I was a kid, which don't qualify as an NDE, but I look at them almost like a preemptory MDE. It's a blip in time. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, my mom, who was a master herbalist, she was teaching people about herbs and herbology and, how to, work with their bodies and natural healing. So she taught these classes at a library every week. And I don't know if people remember this, but back in the 70s and 80s, see, I just slipped up and gave you my age again. Uh, every year for me is a blessing now. Um,
Yeah.
they had these things where you put your feet in these boots and then you hang upside down. It gets all the blood to your head. It was very popular then for, I don't know, blood brain stimulation or whatever. These
Now,
little hanging contraptions.
are you saying this was at your library? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, it was a metaphysical library,
Oh,
not
okay.
a
Okay. I
not
was
a
like, man,
traditional
you got
library.
different libraries over there.
Oh, we're talking Southern California in the 70s. Oh yeah, the
Everyone's
philosophical
hanging from the
library.
ceiling.
Everything. Yeah. So I'm bored because my mom's up there yakking away about, golden seal or valerian root or something like that. And I strap myself into this thing and I tip myself upside down, not realizing at all that, 7-year-old feet are very different than adult feet.
Oh no.
So the first thing that happens is I tip upside down and I go like this, boom. And I was like, this would have been right on my head, right like that.
Oh no.
And I never hit the ground. I cannot explain this at all. Never hit the ground. I found myself standing right next to it, strapped in, turned upside down, felt the feeling of like, and then standing right there. And I
Goodness.
just looked around. Did anybody else see this? What happened? Told my mom about it later. I don't remember what she said. Same thing happened to me again when I was 13. I was living in an icy little mountain town where you'd get up in the morning, and because it was so far out, I had to ride a bus that took an hour to pick everybody up because all the stops were so far apart. So because school started at like 7 or something insane, I had to be out by the bus at like 5:30. Very, very cold, dark, icy. And because I was living in a little house that my grandparents had built for their parents, it had a wheelchair ramp instead of steps. And the ramp was just nothing but a sled of ice every morning.
Mm.
So I usually grabbed on and very, very carefully took my way down, but I don't know what happened this morning. I went and I was wearing these little high heels because I thought I was 13 and I thought I was very cool. I might have been 14. I think I was 14. Little tiny, little spiky 80s heels, the ones that are really
Uh-huh.
tiny. Stepped on that ice. You could see where this is going. Went
Uh-huh.
right on down. At the bottom of this ramp, it was just pure concrete. It was just nothing but concrete brick. Same thing happened. Go down, and I find myself standing at the end of this thing looking back. I'm not even wet. And I said, it's just
Wow.
happened again. And each
Yeah.
time I said, guess it's not my time. I guess it's not my, I guess it's
Yeah.
not. That was weird. That was, but it's an indescribable feeling. It's like the Matrix. Like a bit of time is
Mm.
just, it just something just ceases. It's like you have time like this, and then somebody just kind of folds it, bloop, and you're like this
Yeah.
now. You just lost
Yeah.
some of it.
Yeah.
So I had those experiences. And then of course I had this near-death experience. And eventually, many years after that, a lot of other strange things in between, but I was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, when I was 43.
Um,
So it was malignant. It was the kind that had spread already. Very much of a shock. And I had a moment, and I think this is the turning point where I really said, look, I'm going to commit myself to this work. I was in the bathroom, I was crying and screaming. I was like, universe, why would you save me so many times only to
yeah.
kill me with
Just to,
this? Like,
yeah.
what the,
It's harsh.
frick?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what? So yeah, I don't get the good, easy way out. You getting me the grueling, I had two little kids, still in
Oh,
grade school,
oh,
7 and 12. No, 9 and 12. No, 8 and 12. And I was really having this meltdown with life. Like, look, I've done everything right. I've listened, I've done all the right things. I've worked really hard. I've been a good mom. I've been vegetarian for 24 years. I was just throwing everything out
yeah,
there. Like,
yeah.
why? Come on. And I remember hearing very distinctly, you need to give in and do the work that you have the skills for, that we've skilled you up to do. If you don't do this work, if you don't do what we've primed you and taught you and given you all the access to learn, even the family, growing up, if you don't do this work, we've really wasted a lot of energy on you. And that was probably the harshest thing the universe ever told me.
Mm,
Just
mm,
this feeling, and but they knew what to say to get to me. This sense that you're going to disappoint us, that we gave you all these resources and you still refuse to use them. Why? What's getting in the way? Your ego? Do you not want to seem silly or weird or be like your family? What's getting in the way? What's so much more important than all the gifts we've given you? And I realized, yeah, it was my pride. I
yeah.
don't want to be a psychic. I don't want to be like looked at like, because intuitives often have had a reputation as people who are scummy and scammy and,
Mm,
or just deluded.
mm,
And you would think that with my upbringing, I wouldn't have any of that, but I had a foot in two worlds. I worked in a corporate
yeah.
company for a decade. I have a very sciencey mind. So I said, tell you what, I'm going to research this. I'm going to discover if the work that I do has a basis in any sort of scientific reality. I went on a complete bender after that. I interviewed physicists, multiple physicists. They call them sometimes holist, HOLIST physicists, Dr. Dean Radin, Fred Allen Wolf, Amrit
Mm,
Goswami. I ended up writing some books about some of the kind of like Lynn McTarget, right? I wanted to find out, what is the basis for this? Is
mm,
there a scientific or a consciousness um, that could be more than just the spiritual stuff? Eventually, I found out that yes, there is. Science interprets it one way. The traditional modalities, let's call it that, right? Your intuitives, your spiritual heritages, your religion, they
mm,
interpret it another, but they're both looking at the same thing, different
mm.
language. So that's when I really went in and embraced. And I said, all right, from here on out, I'm going to do this work. So I have been working with people ever since and taking them on, I don't want to say journeys, but taking them places where I go and saying, I'm going to point out what I see. Ask me any questions, and I will just open up into it.
Yeah.
So that really was my turning point and my giving in, if you will. And I mean, I think I've done more good work as a result of that than any kind of 9 to 5 job, except if I were volunteering and like to give water to some, country without water or something fundamental like that. But just the balm and the soothing
Mm,
that people experience.
mm,
And I know from myself, when you realize you're going to live, or that the person that you lost, they're there.
mm,
I mean, it's just
mm.
transformational. It's transformational. As I'm
Yeah.
sure you know from having done all these interviews.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite comforting. And you said it right at the beginning that can't remember your exact words, but I was thinking, oh, there it is. We can say no to this, no to this, no to this, and we can go all
Yeah.
around the houses and then come back and be in exactly the same place and say yes. I
Yes.
sometimes I think we'll just go round and round and round until we actually just do it. So I
Yeah.
love that, and I love that you're talking about how it's fulfilling and how you feel like you've really helped a lot of people. In
Yeah.
terms of your cancer diagnosis,
Mhm.
what happened there? Are you okay? Did that resolve
Oh,
itself
yes.
when you said yes to this? I'm going to call it a calling. Yes to this call.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to leave that hanging. Yes,
no, no,
I
that's
have been
okay.
cancer free for going on 9 years now. So I was
Fabulous.
able to, I have some lasting effects from it, but yes. And I pursued just like all of my nature, I did orthodox medical, and I also did complete unorthodox,
Yeah.
more spiritual centered and alternative health centered. I brought them together, which is no easy trick for anyone else who's doing the same thing, because those two camps don't like to talk to each other.
Yeah, yeah, I can
But
imagine. I mean,
yes,
but I love that you've brought them together. I love that you're looking at both. And I think we should be open to
yeah,
both. Not even just that, but talking about science and spiritualism and
yeah,
all sorts of things. I think there's an element of let's consider both sides and see where they merge, how they merge. A
yeah,
lot of people say they don't, but I love that
yeah.
you've got that open mind about it. Yeah. Now, I can't help but wonder as well, do you think had you just said yes to your call all those years ago, you would have gone through the stuff that you've been through? Would you have gone through the cancer? How do you think life would be if you'd said
Boy.
yes earlier?
I've never actually asked myself that question.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've never asked it. I guess I don't know that I'm not a believer in that you're given things that are like punishments if you're not
Yeah.
doing the right thing.
Mm,
That's not in my framework of my benevolent, beliefs. What I see more is if there's some skill set that you need to learn to do your next steps, you're going to be given the opportunity to do that. And skill sets can come from the college you go to on the most basic level, if you go,
mm,
to the family that you're born into, to the work you end up doing, to the health conditions
mm,
that you encounter. Everyone gives you a new set of skills. I learned so much from cancer.
mm,
I learned how to get over myself in a much bigger way and not be
mm,
tied to how the world is perceiving me.
mm,
Um, I learned that a lot of the bargains we tend to make with life and with God or source or your higher power, they're one-sided. If I do this, then I'll get that. Very transactional in nature. And we don't even realize we're doing it. If I'm a good person, if I eat like this, if I exercise like this, then XYZ will happen. And we make all of these false kind of bargains along the way. And then when those are taken from us, that's when a lot of people lose faith. They break
mm,
down, they say it's not real, it's not true. The other side didn't live up to what the expectations were. And
mm,
I learned, well, you're the one who made that bargain. You never received that from the other side. That was all you. But maybe there's something else still that you can believe in and that's going on. So I really dropped a lot of the transactional or transactionality. That's not the right way of saying it.
All
That
right,
I
we
used to
know what you
have
mean.
with Yeah, okay. That I used to have with Source in the universe. And I adopted
Yeah.
a really fundamental different way of looking at things. Now, something comes along, something big, even like a big health scare or facing down death one more time. Why is this happening to me now? What am I going to get from this? And the most important question is, who do I want to be in this experience?
Oh, I love that one.
It
That's
completely
great.
changes it. Who do I want to
Yeah.
be? And I knew that through cancer, I could have been scared, I could have been angry, I could have been just absolutely pissed off. Can I say that? Anyway, I did. I just said
Yeah,
it.
yeah, done.
Uh, I could have a lot of things, and the whole experience would have been miserable and frightening and overwhelming. And I was thinking, if I had a year left, do I really want to live it feeling like that? The answer was
Mm,
no. So how do I want to feel?
mm,
I want to feel like there's something here for me. And I have a word for this called cherry picking. We
hmm.
tend to think that the good things that happened to us are because we were good and we deserved it and we earned it and the bargain was kept. But when we get something bad, we're like, oh no, not gonna, can't have that. And it comes from that. I always say, I always think of the person in the supermarket and they're going through all the little bins of strawberries and they're taking the rotten ones out and they're taking the good ones from the other ones and they're putting it and they're just trying to get like the perfect little,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone's looking at them like, oh, you're gonna make me take the rotten one? It's so
yeah,
uncool. Like,
yeah.
that's not good. We often do that in our beliefs about the universe, right? Or about God or all that is.
Mm,
And we say giving me cancer, that means that I'm not loved, that I've done something bad, that I have to be forced through this lesson, that this is a karmic thing where I have to be, rebalanced or punished. I don't look at it like that. If I'm going to believe that things come to me, I'm going to believe in every single kind of thing. The good things
mm,
that come, the quote, quote, bad things that come, the challenges that come, the fabulous surprises and happy things, they're all, I can't pick and choose.
mm,
Every one of them is here for me. It's here to gift me something. It's here for me to discover and explore another aspect of me or another piece of me. So I've gotten to explore some horrible aspects and pieces of me in my life and experiences.
mm,
You know, firings and betrayals and almost dying and all kinds of horrible things. But everyone has shown me a bit about more who I am in that context. And I have this belief that if we really want to become these gorgeous, larger consciousnesses or greater beings,
mm,
um, we have to be looking at all the pieces of us. And that includes the addiction pieces, that includes the lack of love, self-love, and value and worthiness pieces. If I always joke, if I ever encounter an angel, I want them to have been through literally everything. Like literally, I want them to know and have gone through it and
yeah,
say, I've been there, I feel you, and I
yeah,
mastered it. And that
yeah,
means the crummy stuff too.
yeah,
So that's a bit of my personal belief that I came to, after all that I've been through. And
yeah,
too, like I said, I've as a medium, I'm often asked to go talk to people who are passed over.
yeah.
Um, I have to say, when I'm talking to somebody, I call them who's disembodied, I often have to say, is this person you want me to go listen to or talk to? Are they in a body or not in a body?
Mm.
I cannot tell the difference.
Wow.
So my understanding of consciousnesses is that we can be in a body, like kind of dropped in and focused. It's like this is a focusing machine for us. It's also a narrowing thing, right? It has to go squeeze through our brain, which is pretty awesome, but it's still a brain. And it kind of squeezes out and blocks out some things so we can get into this one particular frequency. It's like, setting yourself up for, AM, FM radio. Like you've got to tune into a station.
Mm,
If you have all the
mm,
stations at once, you're not going to hear or experience it quite the same. We tune
mm,
into this particular physical station right now, but it's a larger broadcast that's going on. So people who are in bodies and out of bodies, I can't really tell. But I do know that if I am speaking with a consciousness. Sorry, sometimes I'll close my eyes when I really go in. So if I'm
oh,
doing
go
right
for
now,
it. Yeah.
I call it like skipping stones. So for instance, if you're thinking about somebody that you know and love, whether they're here or in physical or not, when you call them up inside you, what I call it an energy signature. It's not their name. It's not how they look. I mean, it can have little layers of that, but a lot of times I'm talking with people who lost a parent 30 years ago. And the voice, the sound of the voice or the image is faded, but there's still a distinctive signature.
Mm,
And you could just feel that being. It's indescribable really through our senses. It's another sense that knows what that is. So feel that. And I'm going to feel them through you. Your consciousness is going to bring their energy signature up. And then, like skipping stones across the lake, I'm just going to skip till I reach them. Usually it's just one or two skips. After that, it gets kind of hard.
mm,
So that's how I'm speaking with people on the other side. Let me give you an example. Um, and stop me if you will, because I tend to run on.
No,
I've had a
no,
lot
this
of
is great.
interesting experiences.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
absolutely great. Go for it.
Um, I was working with one of my clients, and she had a really good friend, a couple, and we were in a session together. And she says, I'm feeling really upset right now and worried. My one of my friends or her husband, he's in the hospital right now. He's in a coma. He's not woken up, and we don't know what to do. And I said, well, let's go talk with him. Let's go find out. People in comas are very, very interesting because part of them is still located in their body, and a large part of them is no longer located in their body. They're bilocating, is my
Mm.
experience. I go in and I'm describing to her what I see. I say, it's funny, we're in this, I can still see it. It's like so crisp in my head. I said, it's like almost a lagoon or a bayou, like they would have in the American South. There's this lake or a pond. There's big, beautiful trees. There's sunlight coming through, and there's a little dog. And I said, your friend, he's walking. He's walking over to this lake, and he's walking through this lake. He's walking into this lake. And I was describing it to him, and this sort of melancholy, beautiful, peaceful feeling. And she stops me and she says, Summer, my friend just texted me. He just passed. Oof, I get goosebumps like, talking about this. And I think this was a rarity. I have never had an experience of being with somebody literally as they're passing. And I said, well, this is his experience, at least the way that I can interpret it. I'm like, you need to ask. Did he go there as a kid? Was that a lake or a pond his dad used to take him to? Did they fish or hunt or something? But it was this just beautiful sensation. And it stayed with me ever since. you
Yeah.
know, because it's like it could have been an NDE, but he went the whole way.
Yeah.
That was his
Oh,
moment. And
wow.
I guess there again was some divine timing in the fact that of all the moments in the world, that was the moment that my friend asked me to, or my client asked me to go look and to communicate that safe
Yeah.
passage.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of interesting experiences like that, or people who've newly passed. Um, we've all heard the thing about when people pass traumatically, it can be harder to reach them. I will back that up. That's one of
Yeah.
the
Okay.
few old sayings. It can be very true. There tends to be an acclimation period, and it's really weird because my understanding of this expanded state is it's a place without time.
Mm.
Yet time somehow can still be experienced there. So it's inherently timeless. Everything is there all at once, sort of the holographic universe concept. But there has to be some unit of time. If a person is passing, meaning they're letting go of their physical body and they're moving into non-physical, there is a period of acclimation or integration that occurs. And I've
Mm.
literally been stopped and told, you're going to have to wait. It's not right. It's not the moment yet. You cannot speak with them right now. And I'm like, well, who are you? Am I in the
Yeah.
waiting room? Like, what's going
Oh,
on
love it.
here?
Have a
You
seat.
know? Yeah, yeah. Well, when? How long is it going to be? I've never gotten I don't know why, but Beetlejuice came to mind. There's that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that waiting room of all the creepy things. It's not
Uh-huh.
creepy at all. And I've never actually seen a physical waiting room. It's more a gentle guardianship
Yeah.
and
Okay.
a gentle pushback. It's an energy more than anything that says inaccessible. So I know based on that, there must be some force or legion or benevolent society of greater beings that are out there kind of helping things along, helping people through certain processes.
Yeah.
Can't say who or what they are, but
Do you,
eventually able to reach that person after a certain amount of time has passed, all unique to every single person.
yeah, okay. Do you think that there's a space where we can't necessarily get through to them, but they can come to us? Or is the acclimation period where, I don't know, I'm thinking of situations and I have a personal experience where someone died very traumatically and
Yeah.
I felt that we had an experience within 48
Mhm.
hours.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, other people were
Um,
saying, well, no, that couldn't have happened because they're in this phase where they're adjusting to their new astral body or whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
They're going
Yeah.
through the shock phase and they're actually unavailable. So
No,
yeah.
first of all, it is not a one size fits all.
Yeah, oh
Everybody
yeah,
who goes through
totally.
trauma
Nothing is, right?
is not, nothing is. They are not immediately unavailable, in all cases.
Mm,
I've had twice now when my grandparents have passed that very night. I've dreamed of them. In one case, my grandfather was walking up a set of spiral stairs. Up, up, up he went. And he looked down. I was like, that's so funny. I never dream about you, Grandpa. I think it's the first time I've ever dreamed about you. Get a call in the morning and he had passed.
oh,
And it wasn't an
wow.
expected passing.
Wow.
Um, so I do believe that you can have um, outreach,
Mm,
especially if that person is I don't want to say clinging, but it can be it can be a weird experience. When I
mm,
was out of my body, it was a strange experience. If I had had the ability to go say hi to my mom, I probably would have gone to her and put my arms around her and said, "It's going to be okay." But I
mm.
mean, I wasn't going to leave that operating room, so I wasn't going to do that, right?
Might not come back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. If rolling out of the wall was any indication, I was like, "You got to get back. You got to get back." That was like the
Yeah.
overwhelming sense, driving everything.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
but in cases where people have passed, my cousin passed through drowning. One of my best friends' partners passed through self-harm. And in these cases, there was often shock, lack of like what happened? What
Mm,
what happened? Almost like they experienced it and then they couldn't figure out what had actually occurred. And they were kind of being gently led into what occurred so that they could stomach it and make peace. So, and in one instance, here's another one. The person who had passed did not believe in any sort of higher power, did not believe in God or spirituality whatsoever.
mm.
And I remember going to visit him and saying to him, "Hey, don't you think it's kind of weird that you're here?" And I got the distinct sense that he was in a kind of box, like a cube, not like a coffin, but like a cube.
Mm.
Nothing scary about it, but there was other presence around him. And they were saying, well, when he is ready to acknowledge where he is, he will answer you. And I said, but you're right here. Here, I can see you. You should be like laughing about how wrong you were. And again, not him answering, some other presence saying he will answer when he's ready to wake up. And I got the sense that it was like
Oh,
he was slumbering. He was just
yeah.
sleeping.
Yeah.
And I thought,
Right.
well, that's very interesting. I wonder how long he'll sleep for. Answer, we don't know. Until a part of him decides to wake up and
Mm,
have another understanding of what he is and where he is. So, my sense that I took from that was it's inevitable that things will change out there even. And people who are um, unreachable or going through, this sort of going through their trauma, that will end.
mm,
It's all part of an integration, and time again is different than out there. I mean, some people could integrate in 30 seconds. To them, it might feel longer out there. I don't know. For us, it might feel like forever, or they don't match, in
mm,
other words.
mm.
Incredibly individualistic.
There's so much we don't know, and probably so much we don't need to know. We could get so hung up on this, but actually, we don't need to know. It's not going to
Yeah.
change our physical thing here that we're doing our physical experience. Summer, I
Yeah.
want to come back. I'm stuck on something and I'm struggling to let it go and move on. You talked, and actually, you had a really good analogy of you talked about the Matrix. Now, I love listening to glitch in the Matrix stories, and I'm going to put that out there. I listen to them nearly
Okay.
daily. Absolutely love them. And there are some which just astound me. And I'm like, that person was on track to have a car accident. They were going to die. And suddenly they're standing on the sidewalk beside their car and it's parked. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
suddenly they're further down the road and they're in their car and they're like, how am I not dead? Very
Yeah.
similar to what you talked about with falling out of the boots, hitting your head. Do
Yeah.
you think there's an element of possibility that perhaps you did die, perhaps you landed on your head and cracked your skull, died,
Hmm.
but you have work to do, and so you actually weren't allowed to die. So the matrix just glitches and you carry on in this experience to fulfill your purpose that you've got going on here?
Yeah, something had to have happened to correct the situation. I knew in both of those, as soon as I returned, that something really bad would have happened. I
Mm,
knew that in both cases, and I don't know why both were involving hitting my head very hard. Um, I knew that the only lingering feeling that I had been saved from something. I had just been saved from something. And it's a funny thing how quickly we can just shrug something off when something is so out of the ordinary. I mean, so out of the ordinary. It's a bizarre thing that our consciousness can just go, okay, you saw that? That was way out. No. Okay, boop, it's gone. You
yeah.
just can forget about it now.
Yeah, we'll
It's
forget.
like
Yeah.
we dial it down from a 1,000 to zero or to a three.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Right.
had that sense in both. Now, as for whether you want to get really interesting, whether the universe split, right? There are those people who believe that every single moment the universe is splitting into a new universe.
Hmm.
You go into ideas around string theory and Michio Kaku's work, and yes, there could be an almost infinite number of universes, all
Hmm.
just minutely different from one another, and yet
Hmm.
all still whole, potentially. But obviously, there was some, again, I'm going to go into this idea of a greater consciousness, could have been just my own, could have been my own higher self saying, no, not yet. I'm going to fix that right now. Could
Hmm.
have been another consciousness that I'm part of, like a group consciousness. Could have been a consciousness that I'm not part of at all, that has some other workings going on out there. This is our own personal spiritual beliefs and what's out there at this point. But
Hmm.
something definitely said, no, you're not going to have this experience right now. That was unexpected and not not aligned to everything else in the path that you've been walking. And in my day job, I can't believe that. I teach people manifesting, right? And how to sculpt and work with their futures and their energy and to align themselves to who they're becoming, and to the kind of things around them that they want to experience. And so for me to say it's something that happens that's distinctly out of alignment is even has a except, and there's always an exception to it, because perhaps that was out of alignment. Yet here I am talking to you about this. So perhaps it was also within my alignment to have this particular experience because it was part of the nudge, nudge, nudge push that
Hmm.
eventually led me to fully do this work. So
Hmm.
I can't say that anything is ever not divinely timed,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
If you can follow, I can get very philosophical. I can go
No,
way
no,
down
I'm
this
I'm
rabbit hole.
hearing you. It's a lot to get
But
our head
yeah.
around.
Hmm.
So then how much of our life, I've heard so many different ideas and perspectives, and I love that we have different ideas and perspectives because we can't
Yeah.
all have the same thing. I've had people talk a lot about predestined moments. What about for
Hmm.
you? Do you believe we choose our moments before we come here? Are they predestined? Was that little glitch when you slipped? Well, you didn't slip, you would have slipped in your pretty little
Yes.
heels down that ramp. Um,
Yes.
was that a predestined moment and maybe the Matrix went, nah, that's not what we're predestined.
Uh-huh.
Let's just, because we've got free will as well, right? We can make decisions. How much do you think
Yes.
is already decided?
Well, predestination versus free will, that's sort of the crux of the that's the crux of everything in our particular kind of spirituality, right? Because there are people who say predestination means I chose this ahead of time. I had a soul contract. This was going to be my soul partner, my life partner. And then we'll build up this whole set of things. I was born into this family for this particular reason, so I could experience XYZ.
Mm.
But then the other side of that is free will.
Mm.
Um, so sure, but what if you're here now and you choose not to have this? Now you don't have free will. Do you have free will or don't have you free will? It's the same
Yeah.
question that they ask in Christianity, right? You know, if God is all knowing and seeing and whatnot, then God has absolutely planned every bit of your life because you couldn't make a decision God didn't already know was going to happen. So if you're a sinner and going to hell, God already knows that. And there's nothing you can do about it, right? It's the same idea.
Mm.
It's all based though on this concept that there's a before you and a now you and a later you. I sense all of us as there's a part of me that's in a physical self and not in my physical self right now at the same time.
Mm.
Therefore,
Okay.
anything that happened before I was in a body happened before I was in a body. But that same greater consciousness is still here with me now, making decisions, making agreements, and making choices. The now person that I am may look back to the earlier and say, I know, X number of years ago before you were born, you kind of wanted to do blah, blah, blah. But check it out. You've made so many different decisions this life. Do you really think we still need to do that? Because I think we've kind of passed that one. I don't think you need that one anymore. And
Mm.
the now me might be going, yeah, why would I want to do that? Like I planned that before I was born, but now I've had so many experiences that that's totally irrelevant, right? I've already mastered, say, that particular, you know, sense of self-awareness. So
Mm.
yeah, let's do something different. So in my world, the point of power is constantly the present. I get a little bit Eckhart Tolle here, the power of now, right? This
Love
moment,
it.
we are multi-located in our being. And this moment has all of our past to reflect on and draw from, right? I look at everything that ever happens to us as a kind of information that gets built into us. And if you've ever seen like pictures of space, and sometimes they have those space umbrellas that catch the solar rays, and they're
Mm.
they're
Mm.
beautiful. I'm such a sci-fi geek.
Love it.
Anyway, so I picture this gorgeous solar array facing the sun. It's floating out there, and it's constantly taking in these photons, right? Constantly bringing in energy. If each one of us is kind of like that, we are these energetic beings, consciousnesses. Everything we've ever been through is just bringing in information to us. And it
Mm.
stays in us. It becomes who we are and suddenly changes us and grows us and moves us. We have this huge, who knows how old we may be, maybe uncountable. But there's this moment right here, and there is this future that is kind of in motion that we're almost like flowing into, like I call it the slippery edge of time. A lot of times, and maybe this goes into the glitch, when we have those short-term premonitions, often when I actually, strange, a total aside, when I first really started to do this work, I've been in what I call flow state more than 8,000 hours of my life now. It's a
Wow, that's a
liminal
lot.
state in between. Because I calculated once, how many clients have I had? How many times have I done this myself? How many times? And when I really started going in, I noticed that I was getting these very short-term premonitions. I'm like, in 30 minutes, so-and-so is going to call. In 1 hour, I'm gonna drop this mug in the kitchen. And I thought, of all the new skills to acquire, this is the stupidest one. I mean, I can't do anything. All this information is dumb.
Oh.
Eventually, that little thing faded, but it clued me in. There is always a slippery edge of time where things get a little, and it's a short period, right? So to go back to us, there's the central self. This is the one that's actually doing all the processing, taking
Mm.
from the past, taking from the future, making a decision. So I tend not to go the route of predestination, but I know there was a me or a greater self, and perhaps the guides or angels or whoever you believe in, who were all making decisions like an hour ago and 5 days ago and 5 years and 50 years ago. They were all making
Mm.
decisions and plans. So yeah, some of those plans are still in action because I haven't negated those plans. I haven't said yet, I don't want to do those plans. So they're still in action. But some
Mm.
I've said, oh yeah, I don't need that one anymore. I
Mm.
did that. In fact, I got so fascinated by that, I overdid it and did it and did it and did it again. I don't give me any more of that.
Done.
And then we're going
Yeah.
off in some other place.
Yeah.
So I think the point of power is right the second. And our whole goal is to become more aware of who we are and what we are wanting right now, what experiences we're both wanting, as well as the experiences we're not wanting, but we're in. Because both of them, I always say there's gold. Your job is
Mm,
to find the veins of gold in
mm,
them. You do
yeah.
that, you know, that's that's everything.
I totally agree with that. Because you've glossed over your cancer journey, you glossed over all of that stuff, and I was going, man, there's such a resilience in the way you're communicating right now. There's such a strength in you. And yeah, we spend our whole life running for the easy things and embracing good times and happy times and easy stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, it's in the harder stuff that we truly learn and we grow and we come out of it and
Yeah.
go, oh, imagine if that hadn't happened. So I'm all about
Hmm.
embracing things that scare us, about not pursuing hardship or anything like that, not pursuing
Yeah.
painful moments, but
Hmm.
when we're in them, and yeah, I make it sound so easy, don't I? Just like you, like, yes, I had cancer.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, really get into that. Now, I know that you say you accidentally created your flow state dreaming technique.
Yeah.
Do you
Hmm.
want to share a little bit about this? What is it? How did you accidentally create that? And how can it help some of our people today?
Yeah. Okay. So, what was this? The year 2000? 20. That's almost 25 years ago now.
Wow.
I was talking with my mom, and I was saying, I really want to manifest this thing. At the time, I had a literary magazine. I was in my late 20s, and I was going to go full into the publishing world and, write and be a publisher. And unfortunately, I did not know anything about how to run a magazine, especially how to make sales and get
Mm,
ads. And this
mm,
was also right when everybody in the world was starting to buy ads online, and a lot of, local papers were starting to go under. So bad timing all around. And I was on the phone with my mom crying, and I'm like, "Mom, I'm 28 years old. I'm $30,000 in debt because I've been trying to float this magazine, and I can't do it anymore. I need to make this work." So we were doing all of the manifestational methods at the time. Now, I grew up on Florence Scovel Shin, people, the New Thought movement. We had a lot to draw from. And so she said, all right, we'll go in and we'll just start doing some affirmations and we'll do some creative visualization, some of the older techniques, that were very
mm,
popular that many
mm.
years ago. And we're on the phone together. And at a certain point, we both said, what is going on? Where are we? Because again, the work that we do when I'm going out of my consciousness, expanding into another, I connect with other people. My mom does the same thing that I do. Um, so we're both in this space together and we start describing it. I'm like, I'm beyond everything. I'm in a state that feels very easy, that feels very light, and it's moving. And there's a direction to this, and there's an where are we? And that was sort of the very first moment when I realized there's a space that I can go to. And when I go there, we can communicate. Oh my God, what do I want to do? It's very different than prayer. Prayer is often can feel one-sided. Like I'm supplicating, I'm asking, I'm sending my hopes out. This was not only am I sending out my part, but I'm receiving back information as well. So I'm going to make this very long story short. Over time, I was able to spend enough time there that I realized kind of what was happening. Um, there was a way to get into flow using daydreaming. So guided daydreaming, similar to lucid dreaming at night, but we're doing it while we're awake here. And everybody already knows how to daydream. So it's actually not based on meditation at all. It's based on letting your senses kind of open up and awaken. But then there comes this moment, just like when you daydream and you forget where you are or how long you've been out for. I joke that it's always, like I'm in the shower and before I know it, 15 minutes has gone by and I'm like, oh, that was a
Mhm.
longer shower than I thought. Where have I been? And our attention snaps back. We lose track. We're actually moving into a greater conscious net at that point. So I call it the conscious net, kind of like, you know how people create things that mimic ourselves? We create AI to mimic our brain. We've created the internet, to mimic basically the network of human consciousness that's already connected. We're just mimicking all these things that we already are. So when you slide into that conscious net, there is a moment of, I call it the liminal. It's sort of like when you're waking up in the morning and sometimes you can feel like you're just pushing up from sleep, almost like you're moving through a little space. Or when you're falling asleep and you know you're falling asleep and then you're gone and you're not there anymore. That little space in between is when you move into flow state, which is a recognized psychological state. Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi discovered it, or not discovered it, but he coined the term as an optimal state of brain activity, of clarity, of a pure flow, ease, characterized by complete lack of resistance. I said, okay, so I am getting into this flow state, but the thing is, it's not like I'm sitting here doing a physical activity. I'm not imagining a golf swing and all the stuff they usually use it for. I'm actually using it to talk to my greater self and go into a greater conscious net state. So I'm doing something with it, which is to communicate spiritually. And that becomes the basis of flow dreaming. I'm going to move into the state using guided flow dreaming, flow. And then the way we actually have that communication is through our emotions. So when I'm out there, I'm not talking. I might use words to try and verbalize, but one emotion is so much more rich and powerful than 200, 300, 1,000 words. So the emotion is the universal language, I call it, right? It's the only language all humans understand, all animals. I know what my dog's thinking. I just look in his eyes, I can feel it, right? So we use that universal language. Now, when we go into this place, this is where, again, my work kind of overlaps because I know I've been kind of going a lot of different places with you.
It's all right.
But
It's amazing.
there is a central thread, right? So when you move, it all comes down to moving into this space, this greater conscious awareness space. Um, Even remote viewing, right? People who do remote viewing, they're just going to the space. Everybody's just going into the space. We're just doing different things there. I look at it like email. Either I am going to put information out, I'm going to type an email and send it to you right now, and you're going to get it in less than 1 second, which is almost like magic, right? Because you're all the way across the world from me. You're really far away. How can that happen in less than a second? Like, how can our conversation be happening right now in real time? It's mind-boggling. Okay, I'm pushing out information. When you are manifesting or co-creating, you are pushing information out into this world. Talking with you right now is me putting me into this world. I'm inserting information, creating it right now on the fly. The words I said 5 minutes ago are here now, but they weren't here 20 minutes ago. Literally in an act of continuous creation. Flip side of that, think about energy like AC/DC current, right? Or the basic polarity of everything. You're either pushing information out and sending that email, or you're pulling information in and receiving that email. You're receiving my information right now. When I go into flow state and use my practice of flow dreaming, I have a choice. I can make stuff happen. And I have a word for that. I call it pre-sponding or pre-acting. Not reacting, not responding. Pre-sponding. I'm having an experience prior to the experience. I'm having the non-physical equivalent of the physical experience. Now, most people, they have a physical experience first. Then they take it in and think about it and absorb it, blah, blah, blah. And that's how they live 99.9% of their life. Physical stuff happens and they respond. Physical stuff happens and they respond. Even planning is like you're responding to what's already happened and planning based on that. People who are learning to really work with this energy, though, in a manifestational way, they are saying, I'm going to create, I call it an emotional energetic blueprint. Here is the thing non-physically. Here's what I feel from it. Here's the experience that I've discovered that I'm making. Hasn't happened physically yet. I'm going to challenge the universe, the physical world, to match that. I'm putting the cart before the horse, in other words. So that's what I do when I manifest using flow dreaming. On the other hand, like I said, two-directional. I could be receiving an email. And that's when I'm going out there and saying, I want to go talk to somebody. I want to receive information in. The people who work with the Akashic records, they're just receiving information in. Okay, everything is out there. What do you want to know? let it receive, let it come in. I'm not making, I'm bringing in. So people who work as intuitives, as mediums, people who are, forecasting future events, they're receiving. People who are manifesting and co-creating, they are, or even some healing modalities, they are doing the manifestational action of it. But it's all the same energy, just which direction you're playing in and which way you're creating or reading. Does that make sense? And it's kind of a nutshell.
Yeah. I can see it's a nutshell of a much bigger shell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it does make sense. And anyone can go into the space, can't they?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's very easy. I've taught tens of thousands of people how to flow dream, and eventually I ended up creating. Well, I've written a couple books about it.
yeah,
Um, I have my podcast, Flowdreaming, and I have an app, a mobile app called Flowdreaming also. And yeah, my website, I teach people how to do it for free. I have like a free kit, and I ended up recording some because while the concept is free, it's sort of like meditation, right? You can teach people to meditate, and you can meditate on your own, just by yourself, or you can get a guided meditation. So I made a series of guided flow dreams to kind of take the heavy lifting off. And I teach people how to, well, I have some on how to reach your spiritual guides. Others are how to create an energetic template of confidence inside you, right? Begin creating that energetically first. Let the world give you opportunities now to express that. Um, Wealth is always popular. Everybody wants abundance.
uh-huh.
So you can use it for anything and everything. And I say I've spent the majority of my career teaching people the manifesting side of things. But in the last several years, I think because, I don't know, I'm getting older, I've been diving much more deeply into the readings and giving people information they need and sort of soothing more souls that way. And I think
Yeah,
that may be my next phase of life that I head into, my cronehood, if you
nice.
will.
Your cronehood. Oh, stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is wonderful, Summer. And if you are listening to that, all of the links are down in the show notes below. You can go along. There's a lot of information on Summer's website, some videos there. So just go and have a look at that, and you can subscribe for updates. And if you want to get in touch with Summer, please do that. Now, Summer, thank you so much for everything you've shared. My heart's still with you going through the experience of, at quite a young age, finding out you have cancer, these calls on your life, and it just feels very impactful for me. The resilience aspect as well. I just really love everything you've shared with us. So thank you so, so much. Yeah, listeners, please do go and check out Summer's website. So Summer McStravick, thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy. It's been such a pleasure being here.